You're listening to the Help, I'm a Contractor podcast with Seth Lewis. This podcast is dedicated to helping hardworking contractors share ideas with other contractors. Seth is educated through the School of Hard Knocks, a contractor, business coach, and author. Seth helps contractors break through recurring challenges by helping them study themselves first. Seth's unique approach is guaranteed to take you from your current reality to your business dream. Learn more at www.startthemo.com. Here is your host, Seth Lewis.
Today on the show, I have a great guest, Trevor Quinn of VaporLock Crawlspace Solutions, LLC. And what I love about Trevor is when I was talking to him, he's really passionate about helping homeowners solve problems around their house. Not only that, what I feel is fascinating about what he did with his business is he was able to start with zero debt. So we're definitely going to want to talk about that. We're definitely going to want to see, how do you do this? Because that's not the case with most contractors. So let's get to it. Welcome, Trevor, to the show. How are you today?
Good, Seth. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Man, it's great to have you. And tell me a little bit more about VaporLock Crawlspace Solutions. So there's a lot going on there. What do you exactly do?
Yeah, so we are a specialty, crawl space rehab company. So every home that gets sold, at least down here, has to have some sort of vapor barrier plastic in the crawl space that helps slow the moisture that comes from the earth or from the air from really harming the inside of the home. And so that's like your wooden floor joists and the subfloor. If you have really high moisture content in the crawl space, it expedites like mold and moisture problems. And that's how you have like floors that start cupping and bowing. And we see all the time, especially on these new construction homes, in $400,000 or $500,000 houses that have these beautiful hardwood floors in there. And in 6 months, they're like, hey, our floors are warped and we don't know why. It's because there's nothing in the crawl space. There's nothing to slow down the natural moisture that comes from the earth. And a lot of the homes that are around here were built, like in the 70s and 80s, and building science has developed so much more now. And we realize that open vented crawl spaces aren't necessarily the best way to go. So we will, go back and basically redo the crawl space and encapsulate it, seal out from all the outside air, or we put in just a basic vapor barrier, which is really strong poly versus plastic, which is what most houses come with, to help them, take care of their investment. Because a lot of people, they're signing a 15, 30-year mortgage for these homes. It's a huge investment for them to have it, go away in a few years. Is just, I don't know, it's a shame. So we're trying to help, protect their investment.
When you say the word crawl space, and this may be a silly question, but where are you located? Because not every home may have that. And what homes have it? And what is it?
So yeah, not every house has crawl space. So we're in the upstate of South Carolina. So we're in the foothills. And the crawl space is the area below the home. It's a lot of people call it a basement, but it's not. A basement is something that's usually finished or semi-finished. But you can walk there usually from the house. Sometimes they call it a cellar, but the crawl space is usually dirt on the floor, and it's the area below the home's foundation and like the soil of the earth. And that's typically where your HVAC is, and like the duct lines, a lot of your water lines. So a lot of the guts for the home are down there. Makes it easier for contractors to get in there, and then rather than have to cut out drywall to fix, a leaky pipe. So most houses down here at least have crawl spaces. And that's where most of the stuff is. And houses that don't have them, they're built on a slab. So it's part of the foundation. So yeah, not every house has it.
Yeah. So the difference would be in warmer climates, you're not going to have a basement. Is that what you would say is the differences, or?
Yeah, there's a lot of basements up north. I mean, there's definitely basements down here. A lot of people like them, move your own bonus room, stuff like that. More houses down south are going to have crawl spaces rather than up north, because you have all the snow and the melt and the flooding. You'd be fighting an uphill battle. There's definitely crawl spaces up north, but down south, definitely more crawl spaces than you'd find up north for sure.
So when you started, tell me a little bit about your journey, with this idea. So how do you come up with the idea of crawl spaces? I mean, it's very unique and it's definitely a niche. Where does it start?
Yeah, so I started back in my parents' house back in 2012. My dad put hardwood floors in, and like the same thing we were just talking about. The guy that put the floors in for my family was like, "Hey, you've got these nice floors coming in, and you really need to make sure that you protect your investment. You should have somebody install a vapor barrier." And my dad was like, "Well, I've got 3 boys. I'm just going to make them do it." So I didn't know anything about it. I just, went out, bought plastic and duct tape. And so completely did it the wrong way. And I cringed at, the thought of how my dad's house was back then now. But so, yeah, I did it then. And it was a decent job for just, I don't know, I was a freshman or sophomore in college. And so, yeah, we did that. And then the guy came back to inspect it. I was like, wow, this is actually really good. They can make some money doing this. They should maybe think about doing this for, side business or starting a career for it, because it's hard to find people that can do a good job with it, and nobody really wants to do it. So there's money there. So I don't know. I kind of sat on it for a while in college. I knew that I could do it, and I knew I could make money doing it, but I never really wanted to get into manual labor. I was going to school for marketing, and I just wasn't really concerned. But when I was kind of getting out of college and starting a family, I was like, look, I have a way that I can make some side money for us, but you got to be like in on this, because it's going to take a lot of work. So my wife was like, all right, well, let's do it. So, I kind of went through and like found some suppliers around us that would help eliminate like all the startup costs for me. And that's kind of how we got started. I knew I could do it. And when I needed money, I was like, I've got this, this trade that I can fall back on.
Do most people, in your area and region, do they know it needs done? Do you have to educate the customer? When I first heard about it, to be honest, I deal with a lot of contractors, and I never ran into somebody that does, crawl spaces. So it was very interesting to me, and, you educated me some, but is this something that people know? Do they see the value in it, or do you really have to educate them?
So back in 2012, when I first got started in this, it was not really that popular at all. Like crawl space encapsulations wasn't really a thing. And the regulations for crawl spaces is super, super lax down here. Like the building code is just vague by nature, like most building code is. And it calls for like a 6 mil plastic liner to be covered. It doesn't even ask for like 100% coverage. And a lot of time it isn't. It's just kind of thrown in there. The inspector opens the door and see there's plastic, and they're okay, it's done. So a lot of homeowners don't know it, and there's more knowledge about it now for sure, but we still have to tell people about what it is. Like, they know that they need a vapor barrier or vapor retarder from their home inspection if they buy a home, but they don't really know what the encapsulation is. Like, hey, you actually are probably better candidate for this rather than just a vapor barrier. And usually they have no idea. So that's part of, our core values is the 3 E's. It's evaluate, educate, and execute. We got to figure out what the problem is. And then we explain to the homeowner what the problem is and how we're going to solve it. Because if you just try to tell them, hey, we're going to sell you this $10,000 crawl space encapsulation, like they're going to look at you like you're crazy. Nobody wants to spend $10,000 on something that they never see. But when you explain to them why it's important, because like about 50% of your indoor air quality comes out of your crawl space. And a lot of homeowners don't know that because they've never had to go down there. Like they might go down there once or twice to, turn the water heater back on or something like that. But for the most part, it's very foreign territory to most people. So yeah, we definitely do a lot of educating. Sometimes people call us and know exactly what they want, but it's pretty rare.
I think that's a great point, and I like the way that you explained that, because education is really important. And I think there's a lot of businesses and organizations that miss this part. I believe that you're forced to do that because people really don't know. So if you say it's a $10,000 job, nobody wants to spend $10,000 on the crawl space if you don't know the value. So I think when you look at the value and you can explain that, that really helps out. So I think that's good. Is that what you found as well?
Yeah, it's not so much the what, but it's the why. And like when I first started doing like crawl spaces, I was trying to learn myself because it was it's such a new concept, like the encapsulation thing of it. So you can't really go to a trade school and learn it. I talked to some other guys that have been in the industry longer than I have that lived in other states. They're okay kind of sharing their knowledge with me. And I wanted to understand, why does somebody do this rather than this? And, why do some homes have this rather than this? Like, I wanted to understand why everything had to be done, not just because it has to be done. Like, what's the why behind it? Because that, to me, it makes it, if you understand why, you can understand the what. And they go hand in hand. And a lot of my competitors in competition, I feel like they overlook that. And they just say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. And this is how much it's going to cost. And they don't really explain the problems if they don't do it and why they're using one solution versus the other solution. So I think it's super, super important. It is absolutely one of our, our core values, and all of our techs understand that, like, it's not just what you're doing, it's why you're doing it.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight that for our audience. For any organization or business that you're in, if you can break that down and really understand the why. And I find when I talk to contractors across the country, everybody thinks they know their why or why they do it or their value. But if I just go down to somebody down the street, it's the exact same thing and they're not really different. So I truly believe that when you dive in like what you're doing and you can explain what it is and your value, that does set you apart from everybody else. And I'm sure it affects the sales that you close. In fact, I know it does. It's not a debate. And the more that you do that, so I mean, I just want to say great job. And that's something that's really special. And more contractors need to dive deeper into knowing their value and explaining it to customers, because we don't always know what we're getting for that money.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So I want to talk a little bit about you going into business, because I do think it's very impressive to go into business without debt. A lot of times I see contractors with a brand new truck, brand new setup, all this type of stuff, and they're spending a ton of money and they haven't made anything yet. So the ability to be able to start out with no debt is impressive. And I think more contractors need to do that. So I'd like to take me through the journey of how you started and how your business evolved, because I think it's important.
Yeah. So once again, it goes back to why. Like, the why behind I starting this business is, I had a daughter, and, I have a wife. So like I have a young family, and, my wife and I both had full-time jobs, but, who can't use a little bit of extra money. And I was like, look, I've got a way for us to make some side money, like some real good side money, but it's going to take both of us together. And if I'm going to start a side business to make more money, it makes zero sense for me to take on a ton of debt and end up being in the red for years. So I outlined this plan to my wife, and that was my first sell. I had to sell my wife on it. So I was like, look, here's the numbers, and here's what I can do, and here's how I can do it. So you live in South Carolina. There's a few different manufacturers that are in the state within an hour of me. One of them was 15 minutes down the road from my house. So I called them and I was like, hey, I'm a new crawl space contractor. I wanted to come by and see if I could take a look at your warehouse and your setup. I really just want to tour it and kind of see what you guys are going on down there, and we can talk about rates. And a lot of people say fake it till you make it. I don't really believe in that, because I don't think you fake it. But I walked in like I knew what I was doing. I just hadn't had a whole lot of professional jobs before. So I got, built a logo, had the name. My little brother graphic design, so he actually designed our logo for us. So boom, had a logo and started my brand for free because my brother did it for us. And then started Facebook and Instagram page instead of a website. And then when we went to see the supplier, we had shirts with vinyl decals on it just to make it look like we were a little more official than we were. And, took the tour of it and got some material samples, and then got their contractor pricing list rather than their walk-in list. And then there we go. And so I was like, look, how does distribution go? She's like, well, we can, if you order over $1,500, we'll deliver it to your site for free. Okay, perfect. So most of our big jobs, we're going to pull more than 1,500 materials. And otherwise, you just pay it and, come pick it up. So, all right, cool. We'll do that. So, started talking to a bunch of home inspectors that I had known, that had, seen some of the work that we have done kind of on the side. And they're like, hey, look, I know that you're worth it. So like, I've got a friend of mine who needs a crawl space done. Why don't you talk to him? So I went out there and talked to the homeowner and sold him on this, gave him a really good price because this was our first professional job. And then I collected a deposit. So I got the material deposit that covered all the materials and a little bit extra just in case, he didn't pay us. So that way me and the guy that was working with me would have some money. So yeah, I got a deposit from him, bought my materials, picked it up, and I was there the next day to do it. And so I started the job with zero money down. And then as soon as we were done, he gave us a second check and paid the balance. And there we go. So, all right, well, we're going to use this money to roll back in to buy some more tools because we realized that, this would be so much easier with, battery powered impact wrenches and hammer drills rather than corded stuff. So the next job, we had a little bit of side money. We used that and we bought some more tools, and same thing, we used deposit. So I was just fortunate that I had a supplier that was local to us, and I was able to build a relationship with them and structure a deal with warehouse space. So I had zero overhead, zero material costs, zero shipping costs, and everything was basically done with the customer deposit. So I'm literally just changing hands who owns the material. I'm picking it from the manufacturer directly and dropping it off to the customer. It's all customer paid material. And then any other material, like if we had extra tape, we just held on to it, and that's prepaid inventory. So that's kind of how we grew it and scaled it without any money. And then since then, we just roll profits back into the business. So yeah, it's basically deposit based.
Yeah, that's awesome because that isn't always the case. And I think that's something to celebrate. I think it was, it's funny, you got this, sell your wife. Obviously, if you can sell her on it and she's in it, I mean, that's a great sign that you have buy-in from your wife. How did you get your leads to grow the business? Is there anything that you did to get that? I know you worked with the distributor, but what else did you do?
This show is brought to you by Momentum U. If you are an owner and you're ready to scale up and break past recurring challenges, it's time to start studying you. You are the only common piece between all your success and recurring challenges. You are the only person that can unlock your untapped momentum. Let us show you how. Go to www.startthemo.com to learn more.
So I definitely focused on like local other like business owners that would overlap with what we did, but not like stick their toes into the crawl space work, because not a lot of people want to do it. So I reached out to flooring companies, and because like that's how I got into it. So I called the company that put in my dad's floor. It's like, hey, look, you did my dad's house and you guys recommended this. Who do you guys normally recommend? Like, we don't really recommend anybody. So, I mean, bring us some of your cars and, we'll have them here. And if somebody needs it, we'll do that. So I just tried to connect with as many other business owners as possible. And then just, a lot of it was just through networking. And then Facebook and Instagram, and really just kind of pounding daily posts and just trying to get as much content out there as possible and be super, super consistent with it. And like Facebook groups, like local Facebook groups. And a lot of that has just been word of mouth. And then referrals, like we'll do a house. And then like we had like a yard sign, and he would tell his neighbors or somebody else would see something. So that was the other thing that when I first started, this goes along with the whole no debt thing. I had an old Explorer. It was just a beater work truck, man. Like it was like no vinyl wraps on or anything like that. And I know that would have been better if I had like a fully wrapped van or truck, but I wasn't trying to sink all that extra money into the company to start with. So yeah, we just had, some basic yard signs, and we're just literally just beating the pavement and just going super, super old school and banking off of networking. And it's done really well for us so far. We've definitely put some things back into advertising, but for the most part, 90% of our jobs come directly from referrals, whether it's other contractors or homeowners telling, their family members or neighbors or whatever. So it's been super, super helpful to us, because every customer that has recommended us to a job is like, well, obviously you're happy with it because you're telling, anybody else who's interested in it. So it's nice to have that to fall back on, but we haven't really put a whole lot of money into advertising. Just haven't needed it yet.
Yeah, that's interesting because, there's some contractors that'll say, you can only get so far by word of mouth, but then there's others that say, I get plenty of business from it and referrals. So, it shows that you're doing a great job and people are referring you. And I think that's really special that people pass you on, because that's the best compliment, when somebody can refer you and say, hey, these people did a great job. I also think with one of the keys that I want to highlight for our audience too, and I always put my coaching hat on because that's one of the things that I do. So when I hear something, I like to highlight it, but channel partners, being able to pick up and connect with people that are in similar lines of work that you can actually build off of and make connections is so valuable. And a lot of times it's missed because those are just, it's a pipeline of leads or work that just comes in. And if you can just figure that out, man, that can lead to a lot of business. And it's pretty simple. So people talk about sales reps and this, that, and the other thing. And you have to have that at certain levels. So there's every level that you grow, there's different challenges, and you have to kind of change your framework a little bit. But something that will never die is if you build good channel partners and you take care of those relationships, that's a pipeline of business coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I tell people all the time. So there's a guy here in Greenville, Matt, the driveway guy. So he does like house cleaning and pressure washing. I tell people he's the best employee that I don't have to pay. We did his house, I guess about a year ago. We did a full encapsulation of his house, and then did a gutter cleaning for him because he absolutely refuses to clean gutters. But he cleans houses, and if people have clogged gutters when he cleans the house, it just sprays like that's the nasty like sediment and broken down leaves all over the house. So he tells people, look, I'll do this, but you need to have somebody clean your gutters. And this is who I use. He recommends us to every single house he does because he refuses to clean gutters. I'll clean gutters all day long, but I'm not going to pressure wash a house. So we bounce work back and forth to each other. And I would say 95% of the gutter jobs that we get come directly from him. And I don't have to pay him a dime in commission. He's like, look, you help us out because I'm able to win jobs and be competitive with these other companies that are adding that as a service, because with what you charge for gutter cleaning and what I charge for house cleaning is still cheaper than what they would charge to do it all in one. So we're now on the second season of us doing gutter cleaning. We're getting all of these repeat customers that he gave us back in the spring. And it's killer. Like we get flooded with them. We get 4 or 5 weeks sometimes from him just because he's out there beating the pavement on, the pressure washing side. And he just pushes us all these leads, and we're picking up 100% of the leads that come from him.
So if you're listening to this, again, I want you to right now think about who you can partner with, who can feed you leads, and who can you feed leads, because it goes both ways. If you can find somebody that you feed leads to, and it's in a complementary, industry or business or line of work, they can also come back. So think about it, write it down. And that's your assignment for listening to this show. One of them is go out there and find somebody that you can link up with, because there's some sales sitting on the table that you didn't even think about. So that's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that point. I think that's a big one. When getting into business, what would you say would be one of any doubts that you had, going into it? The mind's a funny thing. We talk a lot about combining mindset and the you part with strategy. So I always like to ask contractors, because a lot of us are similar, but it's good to know that we all have kind of the similar challenges and successes, different things. What were some of the doubts or challenges that you have, or maybe currently have?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I love owning a business, especially a home service business, because it's a game, and it's a delicate game because you've got to really toe the line on sales and marketing and production and scaling and scheduling to make sure everything flows well. But it's super scary. A lot of people leave, gainful employment and health insurance and all these benefits to go work for themselves. And as much fun as it is to work by yourself and not have to answer to anybody else, if it hits the fan, it's 100% on you. And I haven't, gotten to any trouble like that yet, but there's been times that I'm working on a job that I have felt like I was just so far over my head, because I get so stressed out and I get so mentally invested in these jobs. And, I'll go home at night when I'm working on a big job and I just, it like, I don't want to say it haunts my dreams, but like I think about it in my head, like, all right, how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do this? And like, it affects everything. And I think the hardest thing for me is to find that separation. And I kind of shut my brain down, like when I'm home at night with my family, to actually be home with my family, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring in, more time for my family and more money for my family. And it's really hard when you own a business like that. When you're home all the time, your phone rings, it's really hard, one, to not answer it, but it's hard to have that separation of, all right, this is work life, this is home life. Because there's lots of times that, I go to bed at night and I'm thinking about, bills and jobs and scheduling. I have a really hard time shutting my brain off. So we're like, okay, now it's time for me to kind of rest and recharge so I can do this again tomorrow, because otherwise you get super burnt out.
And I love your honesty there and sharing, because man, people need to hear that. People need to hear that these are real challenges. These are real things that a lot of contractors have. And it's, how to get past that. Is there any tips or anything that you've found that has helped you?
I think a lot of times when you make the transition from being an employee to being self-employed, it's hard to give yourself time off. And especially when you're making money consistently and you've got jobs coming in and you've got to get things scheduled, I think it's really hard to give yourself a break. It's really easy to work, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, but it's not beneficial. It's not sustainable. I got super, super burnt out just this past year. And I took the entire month of October off. I didn't really do anything. I spent some time with, my family, went on vacation. I was just like, look, I need a break. And because I was mentally and physically exhausted, I was done. So I think that's the biggest thing is you've got to be able to know when you need to give yourself a break. Like your body's not meant to run 100%, 100% of the time. Like you've got to give your mind and your body a chance to rest. And if you burn the candle at both ends, you're just gonna burn yourself out. I know it's an old saying, but like it's super, super true. And a lot of my other contractor friends, they've got their hands in multiple different pots at one time. It's the same thing. They get spread too thin because they're adding on extra services and, funnels for work. And they just, it's a fine line. And you really get close to stepping over that. And then you start dropping stuff. So yeah, I think you gotta know when to take a break and it doesn't have to be a long break. It doesn't have to be the whole month of October, but give yourself a little break so that way you don't get, completely burnt out.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think what you said earlier too, with all the gauges, I like to call them gauges, or a lot of times I'll explain them like an engine. You have all these cylinders in a business, and when everyone's running properly, it makes a great business. But a lot of times as owners, we focus on one of them and that one's doing well. And then the other ones, that could be sales or marketing or operations, that one's lacking. So I think it's important that, you relax so that you don't get burnt out, because when you're burnt out, you can't focus on everything. And one other thing that I think that you said is really impactful is the idea of just continually taking new stuff on. As entrepreneurs and business owners, sometimes we think that we can just do something new all the time and new all the time and new all the time. And really what we're doing is we're driving ourselves more crazy and more crazy and more crazy. So I think a lot of times if you're able to take that time away, it allows you to actually let that come to you and see that, maybe I am doing too much, or maybe I need to do a little of this, or maybe I can delegate this to somebody depending on the size of your company. But that time away or a break, and like you said, it doesn't have to be a month. It could be a month. It could be 3 months. Some people take a year off. Some people walk away, and then some people just need a couple days. So I think you have to figure out what's good for you. Do that. I think that's a great message.
Yeah. Well, I know my wife got on to me the other day. We were sitting down and Saturday morning, kind of going through like our schedule for the week. Because my wife is super, super involved in business. Not only does she support me, like taking all the time away, but she actually helps, do a lot of the planning and scheduling. So we were sitting down. She's like, all right, well, what do you have going on this week? And I'm super, super wide open. And she's like, I went through my thing. She's like, you're not wide open at all. Like, you need to stop telling me you're wide open. You're booked out until February. I was like, no, I'm not. And I looked at the schedule. I was like, oh my gosh, I am booked out to like mid-February. And like in my head, I'm like, no, we're fine because we're growing. We're adding on new businesses. So like we have the crawl space side, and then we have the gutter cleaning and installation side. And then we started doing gutter guard installations. And we're actually in 2022, we're going to start doing roof inspections. So we keep adding on these new businesses. And it's great for me. Like I get these new opportunities and I run with them. But sometimes I get too far ahead of myself. Like, look, I'm adding on 3 different business funnels and I'm still not caught up on the crawl space side. And I need to pace myself because I frequently get so far ahead of myself and I don't want to be booked 2 and 3 months out. I don't really operate that well. I like to focus on one client at a time rather than have 3 or 4 different jobs working. It allows me to be more efficient with what I'm doing. I know I could do a whole lot more sales if I had multiple jobs running at one time, but I like to be able to give all of my attention and focus to one job while I'm doing it. And when I'm booked out so far ahead, it's really hard for me to focus on exactly what I'm doing. So yeah, I just need to make sure that when I'm planning something, I really think about the long-term effects of it. Because when I got the opportunity to, hey, start doing roof inspections for us, and we'll add on this commission bonus in the back end. And I was like, yeah, done. And I didn't really think about like, I don't really have the time to get my guys trained up on it, get myself trained up on it, and make sure that we have the channels to do it and the bandwidth to take it on. So yeah, it's a great opportunity, but I really need to make sure that I have, the foundation and the groundwork to be able to build upward, like before you start really scaling. So yeah, I still, even, going into year 3, I still find myself almost biting off more than I can chew. It's really easy to do it though.
Yeah, it's that entrepreneur type of spirit that just wants to keep going. So yeah, a lot of people can relate to that. What advice, maybe 2 or 3 things that you would give to other contractors? What would it be?
Yeah, one, pace yourself, have a plan, and make sure that you not stick to it because plans change. But if you have a plan or a guideline of, how you want to grow and when you want to grow, it's okay to grow faster. But just as long as you kind of know where you're at now and where you want to go at a specific time, it's easier for you to hit those targets because you have more of a direction versus kind of veering off. And, oh, all right, well, I can do this right now and I can start doing this. I can add on this. And then instead of, moving forward, sometimes you kind of veer off to the right. And that's fine. Like plans change. I get that. But if you have a fixed point of reference, it's easier for you to grow the way that you want to grow without getting too distracted. And the third thing is, make sure that you're honest with yourself and whoever's in business with you, whether it's, your significant other or business partners, and make sure that, if you need to take breaks or whatever, take time away, do it. Like mental health is a real thing. It doesn't get talked about enough these days, especially with contractors. When you're in it by yourself, there's nobody to lean on upwards. It's because it's on you. If the business fails, your employees, or if it's just you or your clients, they're going to look to you because you're the one in charge. So just make sure that you're honest with yourself. And if you're doing too much, it's okay to take a step back.
Those are great points. And especially the mental health one in construction, service businesses, there's a natural like macho toughness type of feel. And, the world's starting to talk about it, but it's a real thing. And, I feel like the construction industry, especially business owners, you really, really have to look at, we call it understanding you. I mean, I go into a lot of that in the stuff that I do because I really think, I'm really passionate about that because as blue collar workers and and, hard knock educated, we think that we need to be tough sometimes. And it's not about mushy gushy stuff, but it's about understanding yourself and not being alone in some of these challenges and being able to talk through them. Big thing, passionate about it. That I'm glad that you brought that up. Quick fire to end, just a couple questions. First thing that comes to mind, I'll just shoot you a couple things. The construction industry would be better if.
Oh man, it would be better if. Oh, man, that's a good one. You got me there. It would be better if it was more predictable. I feel like it's such a volatile industry, especially with 2020 and 2021. The materials industry went through the roof. Plywood was outrageous. Sheet metal was outrageous. I mean, when we were quoting gutter jobs, I would quote them earlier in the year when they're ready to do it. I'm like, we can't do this price anymore because we would lose money on the entire job. So if it was a little more predictable, it would be so much better, which I know that's a tall ask. It's starting to go back down, but man, it's been a rough year.
I can build blank in my sleep.
Oh, crawl space floor plans.
Wouldn't expect anything less. My biggest challenge is blank.
Knowing when to take a break.
My biggest skill is blank.
Being able to diagnose a home's structural and water problems and provide an exact solution that fits their budget and their timeline.
Cabin or beach house?
Oh, beach house, man.
That's a surprising one. People, I mean, not for you, but I ask it sometimes. It's funny because it could go either way. People say, oh, it's always a cabin. No, some people go to the beach house. That's cool. I like that. Ford or Chevy?
Ford. Only because I have a Ford now. My father-in-law is the GM at the Ford dealership here. So I grew up on Chevys, but I'm a Ford family now by marriage.
That's good. Favorite brand of equipment?
Makita.
Popular one. Popular. I want other business owners in construction to know
that crawl space health is a real business. It's not just some fad. Most of these other crawl space companies aren't going anywhere. And a lot of these home builders look at it as just like, oh, it's just a fad thing. It's going to wear out. No, crawl space encapsulation and crawl space health, it's not going anywhere. We're going to be a staple in the construction community.
I really appreciate you being on the show today. Tell everybody where they can find more information about you and your business.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we're on Facebook and Instagram. Instagram at VaporLock SC, and the same thing on Facebook, VaporLock Crawl Space Solutions, but our handle is at VaporLock SC.
Awesome. Thanks again. I really appreciate the time, Trevor, and it was a great show. So thanks again.
Yeah, Seth. Appreciate you having me. It was fun. Looking forward to it, man.
Thanks for listening. Like and share with other contractors. Start studying you to unlock your momentum. Go to www.startthemo.com to learn more.